everybody, to the Superhumanistic podcast, where we talk about all things health, wellness, and longevity. Thank you for joining us today. We are your hosts. I'm David.
Jessica.
Make sure that you hit that follow and subscribe button on this podcast so you never miss another episode. We put out one episode a week on Saturdays. Check us out on Instagram and YouTube. And don't forget to share this podcast with someone that you love so they can also live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Last week, we talked about little ways to start living a longer life. You can do that by implementing certain foods into your diet. We linked it back to the blue zones and the people who tend to live those really long, healthy lives well into their 90s and even hitting 100 oftentimes. We talked about how you don't need any of the flashy supplements, any of those new health trends. It's really just taking it back to basics. So if you want to learn more about how you can hopefully grow old with someone that you love, go back and listen to last week's episode. This week, we are going to be talking about a dopamine detox and really just those different things that impact our dopamine levels each day living in a modern world, and how you can take some steps and actions to help with that so that you can feel more happy overall. So we'll get to, I guess, the phone technology. That's one of the biggest things to start with here. The average studies have shown that the average person touches their phone over 2,000 times a day. Some studies even say that it's closer to 5,000 times a day. So what if I told you this habit isn't just distracting you, it might be actually accelerating your aging as well?
Yeah, what if your nervous system hasn't really fully relaxed in years because it's waiting for the next notification?
Yeah, that's a provocative question that we're going to be asking today, if modern dopamine overload is shortening our lifespan.
So first, let's just get into what dopamine actually is. So dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It's the motivation and anticipation of the neurotransmitter. So our dopamine levels will spike when we're checking our phones, if we have a notification on social media, if we're scrolling through TikTok, we get some spikes in our dopamine, and then whenever we're refreshing Instagram.
Yeah, and that's a major problem for us because in evolution, we really evolved for those rare dopamine spikes. We didn't really evolve for them to be so frequent. So our brains just really aren't built for that frequency right now.
Yeah. So how overstimulation will age us? So chronic overstimulation does these three major things. First, it raises our baseline cortisol. So every notification that we have equals a little bit of micro stress, which then leads up to the chronic stress, which causes inflammation in our bodies. And then that inflammation accelerates our aging. The second thing that happens is we get disrupted sleep. So that blue light suppresses melatonin from our phones, the blue light or computer or whatever screen. It does suppress melatonin. So short form content keeps the brain wired, and that deep sleep actually declines. When deep sleep is low, we don't get that cellular repair that's needed. So deep sleep, when we reach the deep sleep, when we're dreaming and beyond being able to just dream, our cells are actually repairing throughout the night. So that's why we need to make sure our sleep does not get disrupted. And then number 3, lower dopamine sensitivity. So when we flood receptors constantly, they down-regulate. So work feels boring, reading feels actually hard, and then real connection feels less stimulating.
And that's dangerous long-term because low novelty tolerance means less drive for learning, movement, real-world social bonding, and those are those longevity multipliers. So if you're getting stimulation all day from Instagram, from X, or things like that, first of all, you're seeing a lot of things on those platforms that your brain wouldn't normally see. So you're losing that tolerance for that novelty and those type of things like that. Also, too, when it comes to those things, you're really getting your kind of spikes emotionally from those things. So then you're not really seeking those relationships out in the real world, whether it's starting up a conversation with a buddy at the gym or hanging out in the break room with somebody at work. You're really drained from that scrolling all day.
Yeah. So then attention span and our brain health. So attention is like a muscle. We do have to work out being able to pay attention for longer periods of time. When we are constantly in that context switch, we're actually weakening our attention span then. So some neurologists are concerned about what chronic distraction does to our cognitive resilience later in life as well.
Yeah, if deep focus builds that neural density, then what does constant fragmentation build? So we'll jump into really that 7-day dopamine reset. So an actionable steps that you can take within about 10 to 15 minutes each day. And that's really going to give you that 7-day dopamine reset. So let's jump into some of those protocols right now. Day 1 through 2, you should really focus on awareness. So track your screen time. Your phone typically does that already for you with the app in your phone or through the settings actually. And then you can also turn off those non-essential notifications. So I know hopefully my boss isn't listening, but in my work phone, for example, I don't have my email showing up on my lock screen because I don't want to kind of every time I walk by that phone want to see a new email notification pop up. So when I'm not working, I've set those boundaries to where I'm not checking those emails. I'm only responding to emergency phone calls or texts. So that's one way that you can start reducing that, and you kind of explore that in other ways in life as well and start turning off those non-essential notifications. A lot of people go through even bigger extremes than that. They'll just maybe not use your phone for a whole day during the weekend, or kind of really try to focus on lessening your screen time during the weekend so you can kind of jump into a more deeper detox. Day 3 to 4, want to delay that dopamine a little bit. So maybe no phone for the first 60 minutes after you wake up. That's a good one to try. I know a lot of people, as soon as they wake up, you're right away checking emails, checking notifications, putting TikTok on or something like that. So that's one thing you can start trying in the next few days. So maybe no scrolling 60 minutes before you actually go to bed. So that's another good one to implement. I try to do that as well. And the only thing I do before I go to bed is maybe use my phone to listen to a video on YouTube related to affirmations or something like that. That's calming before you go to bed, but try to avoid any scrolling through TikTok or X where you're seeing some crazy imagery right before you go to bed. And I would say in days 5 to 7, you're going to try to replace things. So what you're doing in that time span is walk without headphones. So we tend to walk a lot when the weather is nice enough. And oftentimes I will just go for a walk without any headphones and just really listen to what's going on around me, listen to the cars passing by, listen to nature, the birds chirping. So that's one way as well that you can kind of delay that impulse there. Read for 20 minutes. Try to read each day. I know part of our morning routine is to at least read for about 10 minutes a day. So if you want to at least start at 5, 10, work your way up, that would be a great way to get going on that as well. And then try to eat 1 meal phone free each day. I'd probably recommend dinner is a good option. And that way you can, again, if you have a significant other, a friend, roommate, those type of things, then you can hopefully engage with them at a personal level at the dinner table. And then have at least one face-to-face conversation every day. So again, if you're using your phone to really get those kind of mental hits when it comes to your serotonin and dopamine and those things, the goal is to try to reduce that. And then that way you have energy left over to actually have those real world interactions with people.
Yeah. And so to be clear here, we're not like totally anti-technology. Obviously, we have our podcast, we post on Instagram. So we do have that time that we're on technology.
Moderation.
Right. We're just unconscious consumption. So making sure that we're conscious of why we're using the technology and that it has a purpose in how we're using the technology and when we use the technology.
Yeah, so in closing today, longevity is absolutely related to what you eat and how you work out and how you move, but that's not the only factor. Also, your nervous system needs some healthy benefits as well.
Yeah, if our brains don't get rest, then our bodies are not resting.
Yeah, so make sure that you follow Superhumanistic on YouTube, follow the podcast so you never miss another episode. And don't forget to try this reset that we just gave to you and give us some comments on Instagram or YouTube and let us know how it goes. So also don't forget to share this episode with someone that you want to age well with. We'll see you next time.
Bye.